Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Evolution Network and Draft Outlook. I am your host, Joseph Potter, joined today by the Kerm, Andrew Kermish, and Chris Ransom should be around sometime in the near future. And today we are going over two teams from almost opposite divisions, but they're looking at the same rate in how they can get to the playoffs or may just potentially miss. Now, first off, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then later on, we're going to get to the Seattle Seahawks. First of all, Pittsburgh Steelers last year finished third in the AFC. Well, for some reason, it's giving me bad stats again. But rest assured, the Pittsburgh Steelers finished first in the AFC North last year, coming in at 11-5. The Steelers were 5-1 in the division, 5-3 on the road, 6-2 at home. Overall record 11-5. Non-conference 3-1. Non-conference 2-2. So, when you look at the Steelers, you're looking at a team that has Ben Roethlisberger, who was contemplating retirement. He's still there. And as long as Roethlisberger is still there, this team will have a chance to contend. So, Kerm, what do you think about the Pittsburgh Steelers right now and their chances to contend this year?
I think they're contend in the division, but I want to toss between them and the Bengals for the division lead, and I think I said it on our other podcast a couple of weeks ago when we went over the AFC North. I think the Steelers are going to be sussed out with the Bengals taking the lead. Because if I remember correctly from reading a couple of weeks ago, Ben Roethlisberger got hurt again during training camp, minor injury, but he still got hurt, and this could very well be his final year.
Yeah, and that's something you can't discount. Ben Roethlisberger has taken quite a few shots in his career, and with the addition of rookie wide receiver Juju Smith-Schuster, I believe they were looking to alleviate some of that pressure. And from all accounts, Schuster has had a pretty good camp thus far. But the biggest talk in Steelers camp right now, after Thursday night's game, has to be TJ Watt, the outside linebacker, rookie out of Wisconsin, younger brother of Texan star J.J. Watt, who had 2 sacks in his debut game. So, do you think that the addition of TJ Watt to the Steelers is going to not only provide a spark and intensity to that defense, but is it also going to help Roethlisberger and the offense perhaps get more opportunities?
I say it won't hurt them. Of course, with him being a rookie, there's always that, can he live up to the hype? Especially being the younger brother of J.J. Watt, could the genes also be in him? I'll say he won't hurt them, but I won't know if he'll necessarily bring that defense up.
Yeah,
because
and
that'll have to be a wait and see approach with him. But I will go out on record and say he will not hurt them if he makes them, if he helps them a lot or just a little bit. That's still yet to be determined.
yeah, and I want to look at I'm looking at the depth chart right now, and what I'm seeing here is the Steelers' offensive line is something of a makeshift line. We have left tackle, you have Alejandro Villanueva as starter. Left guard, Ramon Foster as starter. And those two guys on the left side, that brings a big question mark. Because I know Foster has started before. Villanueva has been a career backup. So having that on the left side, do you think that hampers Ben Roethlisberger, or do you think these guys can step up?
Who was it again? I was actually trying to pull up their depth chart. Who was you talking about?
Left tackle Alejandro Villanueva and left guard Ramon Foster.
That's, like I said, Villanueva has always been a spot starter. I don't honestly.
Yeah, it's when you start talking like that and you're trying to find the words, I can just say not good, because I do the same thing. These guys have started before, yes, but I don't see them as guys who, if I got Ben Roethlisberger's what, 34 years old? Has some injuries, been dinged up. Do I really want a couple guys who have been in and out of a starting system consistently? One being 31 years old, guarding my 34-year-old franchise quarterback.
It's like you don't know what to say, so you don't want to say anything bad.
Yeah, and Foster did start 14 games last year, so he does have experience in that respect. And Villanueva did start all 16 last year as well. So at least these guys have 1 year working together exclusively. So, but at the same time, they've been backups for a while as well. So, and so you have to look and wonder, because, Villanueva's 28 years old. He's had 32 games. He's only played 32 games. He started 26 of them, but he was a backup for the majority of his rookie year. And so I'm trying to figure out how a 26-year-old rookie get into the NFL, because that usually doesn't happen. Now, at the same time, now I'm looking at the center, right guard, and right tackle, and that's almost completely different, with B.J. Finney at center, David DeCastro at right guard, and then at right tackle you have Marcus Gilbert. So those three guys are extremely good coming into the season. They look like they're in good shape. Yeah, last year, Finney only started 3 games. He played in all 13. He's 25 years old, has 6 career starts. I like Finney. And and he's young enough. I don't, but at the same time, same thing with Villanueva. Do you want a guy that hasn't started that many games, start six you start 6 games that young, protecting your franchise quarterback? You don't want him too old, you don't want him too young, but Roethlisberger being a little bit of an unknown, I don't think Roethlisberger needs an unknown right now. So their offensive line, the right side and center, I liked Finney coming out of college. I still like Finney. I think he'll do a fine job. I'm more suspect about the left side. But Kerm, what do you think about the right side of the offensive line with the right guard and right tackle?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. I don't see that big of an issue with the right side. My concern is on the left side, and something else. A guy being a rookie at 26, he wasn't able to get into college until he was 20 due to graduating high school at 19 due to where his birthday landed. He couldn't get into kindergarten. He had to wait a year on kindergarten, and so, or he could have been held back a year, like I was, because I was 19 when I graduated high school, and then he gets 20 as a freshman in college.
Okay,
takes a red shirt. That makes 25 when he's a red shirt senior.
Yeah, I get it. It's like I was almost at that point myself, so I can understand that situation. And now we already touched a little bit on Juju Smith-Schuster on the offense. I want to look at the other receivers real quick. You have Darius Hayward-Bay. I don't know how long he'll be able to keep hold of that. Justin Hunter, another guy with a lot of potential, but he didn't really pan out in Jacksonville. And then you have Antonio Brown. But the biggest person I'm looking at, both figuratively and literally, is the starting tight end, Jesse James. Rookie last year, 6'7", 261-pound pass catcher, 39 receptions, 338 yards, 3 touchdowns. Kerm, what do you expect out of Jesse James this year?
Be more productive. What was his stats again? Is he more of a blocking tight end
He's a receiving tight end. He is 6'7", 261 pounds, 39 receptions, 338 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He was the big, tall tight end from the 2015 draft that we kept talking about.
Yeah, just work on those work on his hand skills and to be a competent tight end, have him work on his blocking skills as well.
Yeah, because
and another receiver you want to. This is going to be a make or break year for him. If he can stay on the roster or if he gets released, you want to look at Sammy Coates. This will be a make or break year for him.
Okay, and Sammy Coates is that guy that had the hand issues coming out of Auburn, and I don't even see him on the depth chart here on NFL.com. So if he's still with the team, he is probably the last person on the roster at this point. Let me take a look here. What are you going to say, Kerm?
That's why I said this is going to be a make or break year for him. It might even be a make or break a pre-season. because
Yeah,
I was high on him coming out of Auburn,
yeah.
but
So was I. He is a physically imposing player, but at the same time, he has poor hands. And last year, he had 21 receptions for 435 yards and 2 touchdowns. He did not play in the Steelers' first preseason game. So he is a guy that, and he's still on the roster. So he's going to have to step it up because he's not going to survive camp if he doesn't even get on the field.
on February 13th, he underwent sports hernia surgery.
Yeah, and that's not going to help him.
So, yeah, it's a make or break year for him.
Yeah, and the look at the defense. You've got TJ Watt going in there at rush linebacker. But do you think he replaces Bud Dupree, or does he replace James Harrison in the end? Because Dupree isn't exactly the greatest player, but he's not a bad player. He has a good pass rush. Last year had 4.5 sacks as a rookie, 1 forced fumble, 24 tackles, but he's not a world beater. So where do you think that goes?
I think they're keeping him as second string this year, situational player, and groom him to eventually replace a James Harrison, because James Harrison probably only has a year or two left in the league.
Yeah. James Harrison is older. He is on his last legs. Retire.
He did retire in 2013, but he came back to play for the Steelers.
Yeah. Well, I thought he was going to retire last year. He hung around. I mean,
What makes me, yeah, that's why I'm thinking that they're going to groom him to replace him.
yeah, he's 39 years old. He only had 5 sacks last year. So he is not doing extremely well. And I'm not even sure if TJ Watt doesn't overtake him at some point during this season, because he is just 53 tackles, 5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and interception. He's a shell of his former self. He started 7 games last year, started 1 game the year before. 2014, he started 4 games. 2013, he played with the Bengals, started 10. He has been starting fewer and fewer games over the last 5 years, and he's been playing in fewer and fewer games. In 2014, he only played in 11 games. 2013, well, yeah, 2014 was his fewest. He played in 11 games. So he played in 15 the last 2 years, but didn't start in many of them. So I don't even know if Harrison makes it out of this season as the starter for Pittsburgh.
Yeah, with given his age and stuff, TJ Watt could end up replacing him. He did sign a 2-year contract extension before the draft, but who knows with them drafting Watt, or it could have been a case of that he wanted to do that so he could spend time and help TJ Watt grow into the game. Be sort of a mentor to him.
Yeah, and The and moving on to cornerbacks, this has been a weak spot for Pittsburgh over the last couple of years. And this year is, I'll tell you what, if they're looking to find a diamond in the rough, they've got enough corners on their roster to build half a defense. You got Ja'Cory Shepard. They have Greg Douchere, Brandon Dixon, Brian Allen, Mike Hilton, Cody Sandoval, William Gay, Ross Cockrell, Artie Burns. Then they ended up drafting a guy that I really liked, and Cameron Sutton. Then, I mean, it's just a who's who for the Steelers at cornerback. It's like, how do you think they end up figuring out who goes where in that situation, Colonel?
I honestly couldn't tell you because I haven't been caught up with the Pittsburgh secondary.
Yeah, at this point, I don't think anybody's caught up with Pittsburgh secondary. They are all over the place. So, but from the way it looks to me about Pittsburgh secondary, they're just at this point looking to throw darts at a wall and hope some of them stick, because this is a who's who. Now, on the same token, they do have a lot of potential with Artie Burns and a guy that showed a little bit of flash last year, Artie Cockrell. At the same time, Cockrell didn't have any interceptions, didn't force a fumble, didn't have a sack, didn't really make any plays, but he was pretty decent in what they wanted him to do. So there's that. And Cameron Sutton was one of my favorite players in the draft. I love his aggression. He's got a Pittsburgh Steelers mentality. In the end, I think what's going to end up happening is that William Gay, like him, career backup before he got to the Steelers, nickel and dime corner with the Steelers until like 3 years ago. Wow, I guess it was 6 years ago. Okay, I have no sense of time, whatever. We knew this. 3 years ago, 6 years ago, whatever. But since he started with the Steelers, he's been a pretty good contributor. You know, he's gotten interceptions, he's gotten sacks. I just think over the last 2 years, he slowed down a bit. And this thing last year, he only started 9 games. The year before 16, year before that 13, 11. And he is pretty healthy. In 2012, he went over to the Arizona Cardinals. Don't know what his major malfunction was there. I vaguely remember it. It was a pretty uneventful year. And then before that, he had 15 games started with the Steelers. So, I mean, Gay is a good hand at this point in his career. But do you think he ends up retaining the starting quarterback position simply because of the lack of quality, I guess you could say, at the cornerback position?
No, I'm going to have to go. I'm going to have to say no on that one.
So you think somebody overtakes him?
Uh-huh.
And you also have to remember that the Steelers brought in Ja'Cory Shepherd from the Eagles.
Yeah, in fact, William Gay is William Gay is listed as the second day stringer on the Steelers depth chart from their web site.
Yeah, he is. And it says Ja'Cory Shepherd came over from the 49ers. It still has him in his Eagles jersey for some reason. I don't know. But in the end, it's what just happened? I don't know. It dinged. Let it ding. Okay. But in the end, the Steelers are. I think there are a few teams in the NFL, and I like to say it. The Steelers are as they were, but with the rookies they have coming in, T.J. Watt, Juju Smith-Schuster, Cameron Sutton, James Conner, who I think can make a little bit of an impact at running back. I think these guys could potentially get the Steelers back in first place. That being said, we're going to move on to the NFC West, where we have the Seattle Seahawks. Seahawks are a team who had a good draft. They're coming off a division win. They're the favorites in the division this year. They get the majority of their key pieces back. So, Kerm, what do you see happening with the Seahawks this year?
I see them easily winning the division.
Yeah, and they got Michigan State defensive tackle Malik McDowell with the number 3 pick in the second round, who is looking to make an immediate impact, along with Ethan Posick, center from, I think it's, what is it, UCLA or something? LSU. I always get those two confused. But from LSU, and I think that was a little bit of a reach, but I don't think anybody can argue that it was a need. So with those two taken, I think simply with those two taken, they've improved their team from last year. Now, they don't have a depth chart up. They're one of these teams that finicky about that stuff. But I'm going to take the guess that Malik McDowell will probably play sooner rather than later. Do you see Seattle going in here with the team they have and being able to put up, like in the first preseason game, they put up 458 yards and scored 48 points. Do you see them being able to do that on that type of run that type of offense on anything of a consistent basis?
Did you say 58 points?
They put up 48.
Okay. I don't see them going that high in points. I see constantly in the mid 30s to low 40s probably.
Wow, you have high expectations. Yeah, because they have Russell Wilson as their quarterback, and that's not going to change anytime soon. They bring in Eddie Lacy, who is currently sitting as a backup. They've got Mike Davis, Chris Carson, and Alex Collins, they've got a who's who at running back at this point. And then they have all the way at the bottom, rookie CJ Procise. What do you think of their running game this year?
I think a lot depends on how. This might sound homers for Lacey being from Alabama, but if he gets back to his rookie year at Green Bay and can keep his weight under control, that has the potential to do some serious harm on the opponents.
Yeah, and I think I think that weight is the big thing with him, because when he's got his weight under control, he's a dominant force. When he's overweight, which is often, so much a dominant force. And I really didn't see any running back here that actually dominated this game for Seattle. So Mike Davis was the best runner overall. 8 carries, 33 yards, 4 yards an attempt. But I believe that Eddie Lacy has a good chance of anybody starting in the end. But
I do too.
Yeah. Like, I don't have many questions about the offensive line in Seattle, but what I do question is the wide receiver position. In the end, you're looking at a wide receiving core that was a little bit underwhelming last year. And I think that hurt them in the end. So, do you see any real improvements to that receiving core?
Let me see who they have.
Because I'm looking here, and I do not see any major changes to what they have. They still have Tyler Lockett. They still have Jermaine Kirsch. And they still have, that's about it. I mean, they have a bunch of names, but they have Doug Baldwin, who was on and off. So, I mean, they don't have anybody in that respect that, other than those 3 guys. And Baldwin was inconsistent last year, having major games where he would go over 100 yards and then having a game where he would go for 10, 15 yards on receptions. So, I mean, that leaves 2 consistent contributors in Lockett and Curse. Or am I thinking the other way around with Baldwin and Curse?
Yeah. According to Fox Sports, they got their depth chart as wide receiver 1, Baldwin and Lockett. Wide receiver 2 is Curse and a Richardson.
Yeah. And it's when you get to Richardson that really irritates me with them, because they've got so much going on other places, and for some reason they can't get this receiver right in that area. It's like last year, Baldwin had 94 receptions, Yeah, because I had him backward. It was Curse that was inconsistent. It was Baldwin that was the world beater. And Baldwin had 94 receptions, 1,128 yards, and had 7 touchdowns. And that's all well and good, except what do you have that's really complimenting him?
What they
Well,
need to do,
you
they
have
need to
Tyler
bring.
Lockett and Baldwin, which both had a combined 86 catches, I think it was, between them. And that's not – Lockett's going to have to step up. He's in his third year. He's going to have to step up big time for him because he didn't step up the way he needed to last year. And
Yes. Go ahead and finish, and then I'll say what I was going to say.
well, I was just going to say that with Curse being inconsistent, if Lockett doesn't step up, then Seattle's going to be in a world of hurt.
And something else that would help them is that they need to integrate Jimmy Graham into the passing game more, like he was used in a New Orleans.
Yeah, and that's a great point because Jimmy Graham is, last I heard, he was not in a happy place with Seattle simply because they didn't integrate him as much. He had 65 receptions, 923 yards, and a lot of that was garbage, dump downs, and such where he had to make something from it. I mean, later in the season, they started throwing it to him, getting him downfield, getting him deeper and everything. So they started to integrate him later, better. But the last 2 years, he had 48 receptions. They didn't integrate him much at all in that 605 yards. And then in 2016, they got him a little more involved, but that mainly came in the last handful of games in the season for the most part. And he ended up with 65 receptions, 923 yards. But at the same time, he's only had 8 touchdowns in that span with Seattle. And compared that to his last year in New Orleans, he had 10 touchdowns. Year before that, 16 touchdowns, 9 touchdowns, 11 touchdowns. His totals with Seattle are barely above his lowest total for a season in New Orleans in 2010 at 5 touchdowns. So they really have to get him moving. They have to put him in different situations to where he can get open and he can make a difference, because if one of these wide receivers don't step up, he's going to be needed to step into that space. And if they don't put him in a position to where he can get there, that's going to be an issue.
Yeah, move him around the line like New Orleans did. They moved him around so much. He went to court to try to be able to have his franchise tag at the wide receiver position instead of tight end.
He did, and that was something that was controversial. But at the same time, you got to do it. If you're moved around that much, I mean, if you're that type of weapon, I mean, you need to be used in that sense. And Seattle hasn't been doing it. And now let's move on to the defensive side of the ball. What everybody wants to talk about right now is the Legion of Boom no longer booming? And I think that's a legitimate question. They're getting older. Now, I like that what they were able to get with a couple of guys last year. Um, I like what they've been doing with some things, but then you have your core. Richard Sherman is a 7-year veteran. He's looked like he's slowed down a little bit over the last couple years, but at the same time, he's still going. He's still strong. He's only 29. He's still got a couple good years left, 2, 3 good years. I don't that much. Uh, the the big thing that I'm really worried about, though, we know they need a second cornerback. Bradley, you've got these Pierre Desir. I like that pickup that they got. He was former Brown. He was a good player when he was with the Browns. They couldn't really do anything with him. Last year, played with San Diego, only played 5 games. San Diego couldn't do anything with him. If anybody can do anything with him, I think it's Seattle. Now, if he doesn't make it with Seattle, I don't think he's going to make it. Because at this point, it's on him. Do you think Pierre Desir breaks out this year, or do you think his career ends with the Seahawks this season?
I don't know.
Wow.
Multiple flameouts. It's hard to say with him.
It really is, I know. And it's one of those things that the guy's a good cover guy, but for some reason, he can't put everything together. Whether it's he's not good at pressuring guys at the line, he's not good at really doing a lot of what you need. But at the same time, if you put him in a little bit of off coverage in man, he's pretty good. So he really needs to step up because, and I think he could be a good nickel or dime cornerback if he would put his mind to it. And I don't think he's getting there. Jeremy Lane, he is the number 2 corner. He didn't have any sacks, didn't force a fumble, had 49 tackles. He started 9 games last year. He just didn't make the plays he needed to. Do you think Jeremy Lane is a guy who steps up for him this year?
I'm going to say he doesn't. He does not step up for them.
Okay, then who does step up? Because this is a thing that I'm not seeing a guy step up, and they need at least one more guy to step into that role. We know safety is solid. We don't have any concerns about safety with Seattle. But that number 2 cornerback spot and that nickel cornerback spot need to be addressed. Who does step up with these guys?
It could very well be a Nico Thorpe.
Nico Thorpe.
Yeah, he's behind a Richard Sherman. It'll be either him or Lane.
Yeah, I'm looking at Nico Thorpe, 5th year out of Auburn. He is 6'1", 210 pounds, 27 years old. Only had 19 tackles last year, no interceptions, no forced fumbles. Started no games, played in all 15. And what about him makes you say you think he steps up this year?
To have to step up.
Just because somebody has to step up and
yeah,
he's an.
I'm just actually throwing. I was actually throwing a name out there.
Yeah, and well, that's both, basically what you have to do at this point.
They both had subpar seasons or it could be as much as maybe even for
I
you gotta have somebody. It's hard to tell who would step up because nobody, the second string cornerbacks didn't do a whole lot.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. It's like, who is going to be there? Bradley McDougald had 91 tackles, but he and 2 interceptions, but he played mostly safety. I believe he was the free safety last year. So he isn't going to No, he was the one that he's the safety they got from Tampa Bay. McDougald. So he could so if he's safety cornerback combination, I think he ends up at safety. That still leaves that cornerback position open. So I knew they got a safety from Tampa Bay. I just forgot who it was. So the safety is good. But that second cornerback position is, do you think they can switch over McDougald to cornerback?
Yeah, because I think it's actually a little bit easier to go with the cornerback position at times, and a lot of safeties start out as cornerbacks, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
So that
it's
should be an easy transition back to the corner spot.
yeah, and so Seattle is one of these teams. I think we can agree they've got the pass rush, they've got good defensive line, they've got good safeties coming in. Their offense is set. The big question is the cornerback position in that defensive backfield. They drafted Shaquille Griffin to go in there. I don't know what he'll end up doing at this point. They drafted him in the 3rd round. Delano Hill, strong safety. Tedrick Thompson, free safety. Michael Tyson, safety. So they drafted a lot of safeties. And hopefully one of these guys will step up as a number 2 corner, whether it be Shaquille Griffin or they move one of the safeties down there. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and we're going to get Kerm. What is your outlook for the Pittsburgh Steelers this year?
Like I said before, fighting with the Bengals for the division, but they ultimately being one of the two wild card teams finishing second in the division.
And what is your outlook on the Seattle Seahawks?
Easily winning the division.
Yeah, and my look on the Steelers aren't getting any younger. They need to continue to press and get these young guys in there. And I have concerns about the left side of their offensive line. I have concerns about some of the defense. But in the end, I believe that they will be in contention to win the division and could potentially win said division if Ben Roethlisberger is kept healthy. On Seattle side, I'm going to look to the rookies. If we have a big problem with situation and we don't know who's going to step up. So we're going to have to look to rookies there. We're going to have to look to free agents there. And we're going to have to see who exactly is ready to step up in that second corner position. But I'm looking at Malik McDowell. What impact does he make on that defensive line? I think has to make a big impact to take pressure off the defensive backs. I look at Ethan Posick. I've never been able to pronounce his name right. At center, I think he could come in and potentially start immediately over the three other centers on that roster. So I think those two guys are going to have the biggest impact. And if push comes to shove in the end, I think at wide receiver, we have problems with the Seattle Seahawks have problems with guys stepping up. Well, Mard Darbo he's from Michigan. Being from that tri-state area, I can tell you, he's not going to back down. He's big. He's 6'2", 214 pounds. Big competitive guy. You know, he was getting off press coverage in these games. He's tough. He's going to press those wide receivers that are coming in. So I think this year for Seattle, if the rookies can make the impact that we expect them to, even in the competition, I think easily Seattle runs away with the division. The question is, can Seattle get to the NFC Championship game or potentially the Super Bowl? And if these rookies step up, I think by the end of the year, you're going to be talking about them as potential playoff contenders in the NFC.
On that case of making it to the NFC Championship game, I'm going to have to say no.
No, they very well may not, but the potential, I think it all lies in the rookies. How do these rookies do? You got the Shaquille Griffith, defensive back, the center, Posick, you have McDowell, you have Darbo. These guys have a chance to make a huge difference. And let's not discount Justin Sr., the offensive tackle, drafted in the 6th round. I was extremely high on him. So will they make it to the NFC Championship game? There's potential to, but then there's potential they don't. It may take at least another year to get everybody up to speed. If that's the case, then so be it. But the outlook for this season looks pretty bright in the fact that they have a chance to get there, especially if they end up with a bye. So on that note, we're going to call it a day. If you liked the video, feel free to like and share. For Kerm and everyone at the Evolution Network, I'm Joseph Potter. Have fun and take care.